Hey everyone, it's me, Randy. I bet you're probably familiar with this voice, and I have to admit, it feels a little weird being behind the mic. It's been nearly 2 years since I recorded my last episode for the Bánh Mì Chronicles. It's been, I'd say, less than a year since I've done my proper audio interview for my Substack, the Bánh Mì Bites, which you are seeing. And I never thought I would actually get back onto this podcasting journey. Let's go back to summer 2023. I was working on my final season. I was already burned out. I have felt like after recording nearly 100 episodes in 4 years, going back to 2019, several months before COVID hit, I was nearly going nonstop, doing season after season, interviewing so many different Asian American community members, leaders, artists, writers, educators, activists, you name it. I felt that I had already accomplished everything that there was for the podcast. I felt like I was able to prove that I can build a platform and sustain it for a good run. I've won an award. I was able to interview so many prolific Asian American folks that I never thought I would even get the opportunity to interview. I was able to connect with so many awesome folks in the digital community through social media. And I was also given access to so much knowledge about what is going on in our Asian American communities. And it was all a blessing. But I also felt the need to move forward. What else is there for me beyond the podcast? So I decided to transition over to Substack because I wanted to focus more on the writing content. I wanted to take on opportunities to highlight books written by BIPOC authors. I wanted to interview BIPOC creatives, to go beyond just the Asian American community, to think about the other conversations we could have and how I can help to break banh mi or break bread with other folks, and to encourage solidarity building among Asian and other community folks, and also connecting with other intersecting identities and different communities. It started out with a bang in spring of 2024. I was off to the races. I was given so many new unreleased books by publishers. I was going on a reading spree. I was interviewing different folks for my Substack, and it seemed like it was going to go in this right direction. And before I continue further, I also want to give a content warning that talks of suicide, grief, and mental health will be discussed here. But that all changed for me on August 12th, 2024, which today is August 12th, 1 year ago. It came crashing down on me on that day when I attempted to delete my life out of existence. I wanted to just end it all. And I was going through a series of mental health battles early that summer, starting right after my birthday on June 7th. I remembered I was at the high point of my life back then. I had just won an award for my podcast. I had just started a new job a few months prior. I had just booked my first ever solo trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. I have been surrounded by so many awesome friends. I felt like I had it all. But soon after, I started getting plagued with self-doubt, with reminders of of my past traumas that have never gone away. I was reminded about my brother's diagnosis, Andy, back in early June when he revealed to me that he was facing kidney dialysis, kidney issues, which led to his dialysis. And I thought about how my world was crumbling around me. I was thinking of so many negative thoughts, day in and day out. I was trying to put on a brave face. I would tell my friends, I'm okay. I would go to work and I would think that I'm okay. I could do this. But it came to the point where the last few weeks I was battling between finding stability and dealing with the internal chaos inside of me. And I realized as I was approaching August 12th that the latter was winning, and that I felt like I'd be better off just being gone forever and not considering or not allowing my loved ones to support me, because I didn't feel like I was worthy of that. I didn't feel like I wanted to burden anyone, especially my family, who never knew that I was fighting these inner demons. It wasn't until on that day that I made the last minute call to my brother, and he got the help that I needed. I was taken to the hospital, and I had to go through testing. I had to watch my brother witness me at my lowest, and then my closest friends were there in a heartbeat to check in on me. I felt so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed that I allowed the people in my life to witness me like this, and that they were going to live without the reality of me not being there. And it was a very dark period in my life. I would later have to spend the next week in a psychiatric care unit that did not allow anyone to have phones. I had to stay in this third floor of a place that I could only see outside of two windows. I was not allowed to go outside. I had to ask for permission to do anything, whether it was to do laundry, to shave, and stay in a prison-like bedroom, with another roommate, share a bathroom, and not being able to sleep, being in a room where there's no clocks and there's nothing on the walls. It was not the kind of life that I felt like I needed to rehabilitate from what I was dealing with. But as I was away or sequestered from the world like Rapunzel, being on that third floor, looking out the window, I remembered the phone call conversations I had with a few of my closest friends, my two brothers. And every day, they encouraged me. They kept my spirits up. The nursing staff provided great support for me. And I realized, maybe for the first time, how much I needed to allow that support to come in. Where all my life I felt like I couldn't let anyone that close to me in because I felt like I was going to get hurt again or that I wasn't worthy of it. So I had to go through this recalibration of who I was to who I am now. I had to get back into the real world, and it was very scary. It was very scary to face so many people who were terrified about what happened, and to see the facade that I was putting up for my family and friends and colleagues be removed. And how do I tell everyone about what I just did, about what I was doing? I felt that as I had to go through this new reality, I also needed to continue my rehabilitation, my mental rehabilitation. I had to go through IOP, the Intensive Outpatient Therapy Program, online for the next 3 months. And I was against the idea of doing it. I didn't want to be re-traumatized. I didn't want to have to go through this reminder about what I had just done. But the people in my life urged me to do this. And I knew that maybe I need to give this a chance. It allowed me to kind of sit through with my thoughts. It allowed me to find new coping skills, new ways to disrupt the constant negative thoughts that were running through my head, to disprove what I had gone through or what I was believing or what I was making myself to believe. And I felt slowly but surely things were making more sense. Things were becoming more clear to me. Not long after that, I would experience the joy of going to my first ever solo trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. It was a life-changing experience. I learned so much about connecting or trying to reconnect with my family culture that I felt like I could not decipher, that I could not crack. And I actually recently documented my Cambodia trip on my Substack, which you can read. And I'll be soon sharing my Vietnam trip. And I gotta say that was a lifetime or a life-changing, transformative trip. And as I began the new year in Cambodia, dancing to Cambodian music at my rooftop hotel, I was on top of the world. I was beginning to reclaim myself again. I was beginning to see things with optimism that I felt like had abandoned me months prior. But that all changed on January 15th when I got the announcement or the phone call that my brother Andy had passed away. He passed away 1 month before his 39th birthday. And I had spent the first 3 weeks prior to his funeral in a state of shock and realizing how much that this was going to change the trajectory of what I was planning to do this year. Andy was someone that was very complicated. We fought. I was the big brother. I remember taking his toys or grab my toys away from him and he would start crying. I felt that sometimes he was a proper punching bag for me because when I was dealing with my own issues with my parents and with the way I was struggling in school, trying to assimilate, I took it out on Andy sometimes. And I realized as we got older, the tensions from that past would manifest itself in our adult relationship. Although there were many beautiful moments. There were many beautiful moments in our relationship. Where he would be there for me. I would call him about work and vent to him about how things were difficult and he would give me advice. I remember calling him like sometimes late at night and talking to him for 2 hours. Just chatting away about everything and anything. We were more like twins, even though he himself is a twin or was a twin to my other brother, Tony. And we looked more alike. Our names rhymed. His name was Andy. My name's Randy. And a lot of people confuse us as the twins. And sometimes I felt like we were more like twins. The aftermath of his death really started to unravel. I could no longer write on my Substack, and if I was, it was about grief and only about grief. I would be in the middle of work at the office, working on a grant, and I would start to cry. I would run to the third floor and just start weeping. My heart was no longer into the work that I was doing. I was constantly grieving. I would drive endlessly by myself at night and be reminded of my brother, whether it was going to the grocery store that he used to work at or to an Office Depot where he also used to work at, or, take a similar highway and I would remember a story that I would have about Andy. Everything reminded me about him. It was both a blessing and a curse that I could not stray away from. I would miss him every day. I would think about him every day, and it was torture. One day, I remembered I was at work. I had my laptop, my work laptop, in the lounge area. And next thing you know, I broke down sobbing. I lost it. My coworker walks in and she sees me sobbing and she asked me if I was okay. And I told her, no, I'm not okay. I realized that when things got very tough with work, with the deadlines, with everything that was going around me, outside of it, dealing with my family and everything, I realized that my last conversation with Andy was about the stress that I was having, about work, about life. And he encouraged me to make changes. And I told him that I couldn't. I'm not ready for it. I want to give this a chance. And he insisted that I do. And that was the last thing he told me. Fast forward to that moment, I thought about how when I would get frustrated with work or with life, he would be the first one I would talk to. I never had that. I never could do that. I could not call him anymore. I could not tell him about what was going on. And I realized how much I really missed him and how much I needed him. But he was not there. And I wanted to tell him that he was right about what he had just told me. And here I was, trying to pick up the pieces and trying to move on. And I realized that there was still guilt. There was still guilt that I was not a good enough of a brother. That maybe had I been better to him early on in his life, he wouldn't have these problems. Maybe he would still be alive. And I realized that I needed to step away. I needed to step away from what I was doing to finally grieve. To finally remind myself of my own place in this life. And I'm sorry for crying, It's still a very touchy moment. It's a touchy area for me. And I realized that I wanted to change what I was doing this summer. I wanted to finally rest. I wanted to finally be able to breathe. But I also wanted to get the creativity that I felt like I had lost for the past year. The drive that was missing. And I needed to confront what I was dealing with. And not hide from what I was hiding from like I did last summer. So yes, I had spent a lot of time and realized that once I was able to go to Oregon to honor my brother for the final time, I was able to let go of some of the guilt, of some of the grief. And as a result, my creativity started coming back. I was able to start writing about other things that no longer had to deal with just grief. I was taking Vietnamese classes online and trying to reclaim myself and trying to empower myself to bravely take on a language that I was afraid that I would never be able to learn. I realized that I want to get back on the podcast because I missed being able to have conversations with folks. I miss the curiosity that allowed me to make this platform. And I was becoming curious again. I was feeling the urgency, especially in this very difficult climate that we live in, with genocides that are happening in Gaza, to the Trump administration, and dealing with the onslaught of bad news that seems to just happen every day. I felt like I wanted to go back to something that made me feel happy and make me feel very connected. And so this is why I'm coming back to this platform. I want to say that as I look back on this past year, I am only grateful for what I've been given, and to the people that have continued to support me, to the people that continue to support my work, but more importantly, just to check in to see how I'm doing. And I did not realize how much love there has been, not only within where I live, but from all across the globe. From friends that I've come across from different places in the US, North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And it is really awesome. So when I do this podcast, it'll be part of the Substack. And a few things will be a little different. I don't think I will see myself doing any seasons. I see this podcast as kind of an accessory to the Substack, Bánh Mì Bites. And instead of just focusing on the Asian American community, I also wanted to focus on other communities as well, in the BIPOC and LGBTQIA communities. But I still plan to still make the Asian American or Asian community to be the centerpiece of my work. I don't have an expectation how much episodes I'm going to have each time out. It could be once a week, it could be once every 2 weeks, or it could be once a month. But I'll leave you guessing, because I'm not going to put that expectation on myself. What I do want is to make sure that you all know that I want to use this platform to share a lot of the things that I have discovered along the way, and hoping that what I put out, I would get the energy and the stories and knowledge that helps me to understand this world that we're all living in and how we can all navigate together. So, with that said, I'm looking forward to being back on this journey, and thank you for being so patient with me. Thank you for all your support for the last several years. And I hope that this new addition to my Substack will be even more fruitful, and that you take something away from this experience. So, with that said, I love you all. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here today. And I know I'll stick around for you all. So, more to come soon.